warning, this is going to be what is called the no-seam. And this pattern actually is going to helps prove that concept that your fly does not have to be overly complicated and flashy in order to catch fish. So I'm tying this on a size 18 TroutFly hook. And this pattern can be a midge, it can be a baetis, it can be several different types of things. You can change the body color just by changing the thread color. Here I'm just going straight up black. And I've just secured that thread to my hook, and I'm going to take it down to where the barb of the hook is, which I will mash down before I fish this. This is a very effective pattern. So we've gone down. I'm going to try to take touching turns, moving back up to a couple of eye lengths behind the eye of the hook here. I'm going to stop right about there. So I'm just going to use a done hackle feather here, and I'm actually sizing it up. So this is a size 18. This hackle would be more appropriate for maybe a 16 or a 14. So it's oversized intentionally. We're just going to tie this in like we would normally tie in a hackle. And get one wrap over this side of it. Bring that around the back side of that stem, holding it tight while I get a couple of wraps back towards the bend of the hook. And you can see, hopefully, the stem and the feather are sticking out about a 90-degree angle from the shank of the hook, and that's a really good way to get a good hackle on your fly. So with that in place now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take a couple of wraps forward till that stem begins to bend towards the eye of the hook. And once I get it about that far, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it upside down so I can access it with my scissors. I'm going to go ahead and clip that off the stem. Go ahead and clean that up just a little bit, but I don't need too much. So with our hackle firmly in place, I'm going to go ahead and pull that kind of straight up. I'll go ahead and give it maybe a little bit of a bend. This is a very forgiving hackle, by the way. It can go all over the place. I'm only going to take a few wraps here. I don't need a ton and a half. Because what we're going to do is we're going to sweep those fibers, and that's going to be good enough. I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple of wraps over the top of the stem of that hackle feather, just so we can cut that off and then finish up the fly. And yeah, I've got hackle fibers going everywhere, which is just fine. I don't have to be as careful as I usually am when I'm tying with a hackle, because we're just going to kind of pull everything back and on top and clip that hackle off. So we're kind of in a finishing position here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and I want to stroke these fibers from the bottom all the way up to the top, so I have nothing on the bottom. And it may take a few tries as you kind of work on this. So there's that one wrap, and what I'm going to do is try to take some figure 8 wraps around these fibers, locking them up on the top of the shank of the hook here. We'll just take a couple more of those kind of crossing over wraps. And I do have a couple of strays, and that's fine. I'll just pick those right out, rather than sit and fight and fight and fight. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to kind of get ourselves a little bit of a head. Don't need much. So we're about just like that. We go ahead and whip finish. You can see how simple this fly is, but holy moly is it effective. Some of the really outstanding looking patterns fish very well, but you can also have some pretty simple patterns that fish incredibly well. So we'll go ahead and do our whip finish there. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my thread off at this point. So as I mentioned, I've got a couple of stragglers. I'm just going to grab my tweezers, and I think I've got maybe 4 or 5 is all. Just grab hold of these and pluck them. Pretty easy to do with your tweezers. I've got a couple here on the bottom. So that's it. That's the no-see-em. Just because I'm a little bit OCD, I'm going to go ahead and turn this upside down. I'm just going to grab a black Sharpie. You can see some of the done hackle at the bottom here, and I'm just going to kind of color that in so that it's not necessarily showing through on the bottom of the fly. So it's all black on the bottom. With that, you can see how much effort and time I put into that. I'm going to go ahead and hang this sucker upside down. I'm going to grab my super glue, my Z-ment, my Zap-A-Gap, whatever you might want to call it. And I'm just going to put this tiniest little drop right on the bottom, securing that hackle and those thread wraps in place. So there you go. That's the no-see-em. Really basic, easy pattern, very effective. Change it up by changing the color of the thread if you'd like. Also, just keep in mind that when you're putting the hackle on, you want to oversize your hackle. So at least 1 to 2 sizes larger than what the hook would require. So this being a size 18, this is going to be a size 16 or 14 hackle. That just helps that stand up a little bit. And the ultimate goal is to have all of this standing straight up rather than having any hackle underneath. We also don't have a tail on it. And this rides right straight up in the water. Very effective. So throw yourself a hook in your vise and give this one a shot.